Salvē, Mike, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 5, verses 36 through 37. But first, last time in John chapter 5. Latin pages are somehow more cooperative than the Greek. Here's the rubric. Let's go ahead and get started. Ego autem habeo testimonium maius Ioanne opera. Ioanne. Opera enim quae dedit mihi pater ut perficiam ea ipsa opera quae ego facio testimonium perhibent de me, quia pater me misit. Et qui misit me pater ipse testimonium perhibuit de me neque vocem eius quam audistis neque speciem eius vidistis. There we have that. Our first word is the unnecessary and therefore emphatic personal pronoun I. Autem connecting us to the previous clause. We could say but or however. Habeo, first principal part, so we don't need to parse that. Just have. Testimonium, therefore accusative singular, object of habeo. This one is neuter, as we have seen before. It still hasn't changed. Maius is a interesting word. This one, and I didn't think to write that down, did I? No, I did. For whatever reason, this thing's a comparative, clearly. When comparatives come up, I immediately forget their positive form. This one, according to my notes, which remember for me, is from Magnus. So Maius, the IUS, is going to be the accusative, singular, neuter form, modifying testimonium. And then we have Ioanne. There being no punctuation, this isn't easy to tell, but Ioanne closes the clause. Maius wants an ablative, which is what that E stands in for. And it needs the ablative because we have an ablative of comparison. The other way of doing a comparison in Latin is we have quam plus the same case as whatever is being compared to. So the way that we would do that would then be ego autem habeo testimonium testimonium magnum quam Ioannum, because John would have to be accusative just as testimonium is accusative. And it'd be one more word, and Maius is easier to use. So, moving on to the next clause, opera enim. Enim is postpositive. I probably should have pointed to that earlier to tell you why I put the comma in, other than just since enim dictates that opera must be the first word of this clause. Opera from opus, opera, operis is the nominative or accusative plural neuter, meaning works. Quae is going to be matching opera, so this is again nominative or accusative plural neuter. And we can't say which yet because quae introduces a subordinate clause, relative clause. So we don't have the verb that goes with opera or takes opera as its object to tell us which of the two. That's going to appear much further down, so you have to parse all of this before we get to that. Dedit, notice the Greek borrowed reduplication from do, dare, dedi. This is with the it, the third person singular, perfect tense, active, indicative. Dedit wants to take an indirect object, which we see with mihi, so dative, singular, common. And then pater is going to be our subject rather than quae, telling us that quae is accusative, not nominative, but not clearing up opera yet because quae can be a different case than the thing to which it refers. Pater can only be nominative, singular, masculine, or vocative, but he's not speaking to the father. Ut is a additional clause, so this is going to be a result clause or a purpose clause. Works which father gave to me with the result that, no, it's going to be purpose. And therefore it wants a subjunctive, which we see with this am from perficio. So this is a Trying to remember. Faccio, facere. Yeah, it's a third IO. Couldn't remember if it was third or fourth. That is shameful. Third IOs and fourths, when they go into the subjunctive, they take IA as per We Beat a Giant, the first page in the review, if you took the time to look through that. But this is also, since it's the first person singular, identical with the future. So we have the two different options, even though we know which one is correct. First person singular, either perfect or future. Both of them are active. Future is indicative. Perfect is subjunctive. Ut tells us that the subjunctive and the perfect are correct, while the future and the indicative are incorrect. So that I perform what? Or bring to completion. So that's what perficio comes to mean. Definitely at this time, based on the fact that it's coming from the Greek word. The Greek form that we have is teleoso. Yeah. And teleoso means to bring to completion, to consummate, to finish, to perfect. Perfect we get from this word, but that's not the best word to use in English translation because our idea of what perfect means and what teleoso, telos and perficio are not the same. But ea from is, ea id, matching quae, matching opera for accusative, plural, neuter as the direct object so that I complete them. Ipsa, referring back to ea, would be the initial temptation, but there we have opera again, so then instead ipsa is running forward for another either accusative or nominative, plural, neuter, still not clarified because again we have a relative clause referring back to opera for either accusative or nominative, and I'm not going to write any more this time. Ego, immediately following quae, tells us quae can't be nominative, must be accusative. Ego being the subject of our verb here. This is the first principal part, so we don't need to parse that. So I myself do, which I myself do. And then we finally get to the clarification for what form this opera is. Testimonium, could be nominative or accusative, but this time it is going to be singular, neuter. And our verb perhibent, ent, third person, plural, perhibeo. This is a second conjugation, so the e tells us that this is present tense, it's active, and it is indicative. Well, what plural thing do we have for the subject? Can't be testimony, so testimony has to be accusative, can't be nominative, can't be Jesus himself, he's singular. Quae is already the object of faccio, but then going back to opera as the next nearest thing outside of this relative clause, which ends at faccio, means that opera must be the subject of perhibent. Nominative, not accusative. Well, then what does that tell us about opera here? We still don't have a verb for it. Well, what I think is going on is because we had a relative clause and then we had a purpose clause, Jesus is now repeating the subject added with this ipsa, so this or the same works, to clarify that he's referring to this one here. So this is a statement of the subject that goes with perhibent, and then these two together are the restatement of that same subject. So this one is also going to be nominative, not accusative. Oh, deme, prepositional phrase, plus ablative, singular, common. De plus ablative means concerning. Then into the final clause of verse 36, quia pater me missit, quia that, or this, Father. Pretty clearly the subject of the sentence me as either the ablative or accusative, but with missit it's going to be accusative, singular, common. Mitto, mittere, misi, perfect tense, third person, singular to fit with father, active and indicative. Then into verse 37, et qui, nominative, plural, or singular masculine. Miss it with it, same form as miss it here. Then tells us that qui can only be nominative singular, masculine, referring back to the father as the next nearest nominative. Me, replication of the subject, or not subject, object earlier. Who sent me? Father. Why that is there is, I think he's just naming him again, and I don't know why Jesus does this, because it's the exact same. Well, it's almost the exact same in Greek. Instead of qui missit, Greek has a participle, but that's normal. Latin will translate the participle into a relative clause because Latin works that way when they've got perfectly good participles that they could use. So pater, I think, is just a renaming, and I don't know why. Ipse, referring back to father. Both of these are nominative, singular, masculine. Father himself, testimonium. Perhibuit, it, but especially with the stem change here. So perhibeo, perhibere, perhibui, perfect tense, third, singular, active, indicative. Testimonium being taken as the object, as we saw beforehand. De, prepositional phrase. Me, same as above, so don't need to parse that either. And then we get a completely new clause. There's no real word indicating this, just from the sense of what's going on that we have to tell this. So, and who sent me? Father himself has borne witness about me. And then neque. Neque can't really be part of this. It would render that entire clause nonsensical. Instead, neque must be going with this other neque here, linking two different clauses. So neque vocem, vox, vocus. This one is accusative, singular, feminine. Eius is the genitive singular, common of is, ea, id. Owning vocem. Umquam is it an adverb? I think it's an adverb. It means ever. If we wanted to say, and I'm bringing this up because I brought it up in the Greek video for no apparent reason. If we wanted to say never, we just add an in for that numquam, but you probably know that. Neque plus neque, neither nor. And then we get our verb for this first clause, audistis. This is from audito. This is a fourth conjugation. Since we have the s before the t, we know that this is perfect tense because the stem of the perfect and the stem of the present are effectively identical. You can only tell from the personal ending, in this case, second person plural, perfect, active, indicative. Neque nor, speciem, em, accusative, singular. This is species, so this is a fifth declension, and it means image, appearance, beauty, or just view, at least according to Cassell. So image I don't think is right because I'm pretty sure somewhere else either Jesus or Paul speaks about Jesus as being the image of the Father. So I'm going to go with appearance. Eius, repetition there. We don't need to parse it. Vidistis, note the S in there again. Video, videre, vidi. This one is actually different from its first principal part, so it's easier to identify, but same form. So hearing and seeing, neither nor. There we have that. Let's go ahead and take a look at it in its own context. Now I myself have witness greater than John, for works which Father gave to me so that I complete them. These works which I myself do give witness concerning me, that Father sent me. And who sent me? Father himself has given witness about me. Neither his voice ever have you heard, nor his appearance have you seen. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to make this page the start of the new section so we don't have to flip through everything previous again going forward. I think we're getting pretty close to the end of the chapter. So thank you for joining me. I hope that this helps you, and I hope that my future videos help you, assuming my camera continues to function, and I hope that you have a very good day. Wale.